Hey YouTube, it's Gareth here again, and I've got another phone to talk to you about. This time it's the iPhone SE. It's the rose gold version, it's a reboot of the 5S, the 5C, what you want to call it, but it's Apple taking the 4-inch phone, stuffing loads and loads of power inside it, and creating a new phone essentially. But is it a new phone? Is it really just the same design repackaged, or is it worth saying this is a special edition, an SE? Let's find out. So I'm still a bit confused about what Apple's done here. The iPhone SE is essentially the iPhone 5 and the 5S in the same body. As you can see, if you've had one of those phones before, it's very similar, but that doesn't mean it's a bad design. It's very well made, it's full metal, it feels very nice in the hand, it's 113 grams, so it's very light, and everything just feels very well made. The only real niggle I have with it is the fact that this power key at the top rattles a bit, and it's annoying when you're sort of moving the phone around and you can feel it going. It ruins Apple's premium design, I think, from the overall experience. But ultimately, it's very well put together, it feels really great in the hand, and Apple's just continued with its great design heritage. On top of that, Apple's popped in all the same internals as its latest flagship. So the iPhone 6S has an A9 chip, so does this. 2GB of RAM, same again, and on the back, a 12-megapixel camera, but this time without the unsightly camera bump, because it's a slightly thicker phone, so they can fit more in there. And that really makes a difference. So when you're putting the phone down on the table, it doesn't rub too much. You can pull it over here, you can see the difference. Having that has annoyed a lot of people. One person even ground that down, which was a bad idea, but hey, do what you want. So let's talk about how it actually feels to use. And the thing is, this thing is so fast. It's got such an amazing internal memory and capacity and CPU that everything that it does works really well. So opening up maps really quickly. Want to get on the internet, again, really quick. It's just everything opens and shuts with a real snap to it, and it feels like this is very much a modern phone. It's a flagship phone, and even though it's got some 2011 stylings, again, it feels very, very quick, and that's what you want from a phone like this. And just the little things about the interface as well. So having the notifications and the control center, and because it's one-handed, it's very easy to activate it all, and that's what you don't get with the iPhone 6S. So trying to use this one-handed, you've got to stretch your fingers a little bit. So again, the SE is really perfect for the person that wants to use this one-handed. Let's talk about the camera now. As I mentioned, it's a 12-megapixel camera, but it's got all the same internals as the iPhone 6S. That means focus pixels. It means a really quick autofocus. It means you've got the flash that works really nicely in QuickTime, and you've got the front-facing camera, which is 1.2 megapixels, and that can use the screen retina flash as well. So if you want to take a selfie and you've got a dark situation, it's perfect for that. Let's take a look at some of the photos that we captured using the phone. And while I'm not a huge fan of the iPhone itself, because the colours do end up kind of muted. Apple says that's natural, and to some people, yeah, that is really important. Live photos as well are here, which is actually quite impressive because, on the older phones and some of the newer phones from Apple, you haven't got live photos enabled. What this does show though is you hold the finger on the screen and it starts them up. There's no 3D touch here, there's no pushing the screen in to make them activated. And you think, actually, why did Apple bother doing that at all? You don't really need it, long presses work just fine. So maybe it says 3D touch isn't as needed as it could be. But going back to the photos themselves, everything's really clear. You can zoom right in, there's lots of definition on the water. And you see, HDR mode operates automatically, so detail in the clouds that you wouldn't normally get with some camera phones. And basically everything just looks really clear. You can get some really nice close-up shots. You can really play with exposure. And even at low light pictures as well. You've got the fact that even in the evenings when things don't look as good, you still get a lot of information coming through. Battery life, a big concern for a lot of iPhone users, especially in the past, and with the iPhone 5 and 5S, it was terrible. You'd run out to about 20% by the end of the day, nearly every day. You'd be reaching for the charge. You'd be having a red line like this and you'd think, I'm not going to have to make it through the whole evening. The good news is the iPhone SE has a much better battery life. It uses the same battery pack as the iPhone 5S and 5 itself, although ever so slightly larger, but with the A9 chip, with the improved iOS 9 software, it seems to work a lot better. So generally day to day, I'm getting about 19-20 hours before I have to reach for the battery charger itself, and the things that actually hurt it so much are much lower. So Spotify working in the background, that's streaming, that's pushing a lot of information going through, but ultimately it's not as bad as it could have been, and Apple seems to have improved things from the 6 onwards, and the iPhone SE, even with a smaller power pack, works very well. Okay, let's get on to the thing that really upsets me about the iPhone SE. It's just an old design. If you compare it to the iPhone 5S, it's exactly the same. There's very little difference. So if you're looking at this on the train, apart from the rose gold colour and the small SE there's literally no difference between these phones. They've got the same chamfered edges. Yeah, it's bead blasted, so it feels slightly different under the finger, but visually, it's so similar it's untrue. Now, okay, Apple's used the same mechanisms for making the phone. It's saved money, it's been very cost effective with that, but we have the iPhone 6S design. We have this rounded pebble-like design that people really like at the moment. And people really want to see that. They want to see progression in a phone, evolution, and feel like they're getting a new phone. I don't see why Apple couldn't have kept this smaller form factor, which works really well. You know, you've got one finger access really easily to everything. But why not make it rounded? Why not make it look different and take the heritage that they've got now and put it into a new design? It feels like that fits really well. The other problem is the screen. Well, yeah, okay, at full brightness it looks okay. It's still very dated. This is the same screen technology we had with the iPhone 5 from 2011. That's nearly 5 years old now. And for a phone from Apple to be brought out and say this is new, that's just not good enough. You know, you've got an 800:1 contrast ratio, which means whites don't look as white, blacks don't look as black, and if you're watching a film, it generally will look okay. I mean, the screen's small enough for them to stay looking sharp enough, but everything's a little bit dark. It doesn't look as good as it could do. And if you compare it to something like the Galaxy S7, it's night and day. I'd say if you do buy this phone and your friend's got an S7, just don't look at it. You'll feel pretty sad every time you do. Overall, is the iPhone SE a good phone? Yes, it is. Actually, it's a brilliant palm-friendly phone, to the point where I'm not sure why every other Android manufacturer hasn't cottoned onto the same thing. Some people do want a phone you can fit in one hand and you can stretch your finger all the way around the screen, and you can make it work just as fast as you can an S7 or an LG G5 or another flagship phone. There is a market out there for that. It is a small market, it's a niche market, but it's big enough for Apple to try and attack it. And I think the reaction so far has been really good because you've got all the power, all the really great speed and camera of the flagship phones out there, and yet it's in a much more palm-friendly design. I think we're going to see a lot more of these going forward. So yes, it's a great phone. It's a bit too small for the modern day user where we've got used to larger screens and we want to see the phablets coming forward. But for today, it's a really good phone for a small niche, and I think it's a great move from Apple. So that's the iPhone SE. If you're an Android fan, would you want one? You know, it's small, it's palm-friendly, and it's fast and powerful, but is it enough to make you join the iFamily? iPhone fans as well, you know, are you thinking that the 6S and the 6S Plus are too big and this is the phone for you? Please let us know in the comments below. And as ever, thank you for liking, thank you very much for subscribing, and we'll see you again very soon.